What is going on, friends and fam? I'm super excited and glad that you guys are taking your mixing to the next level by entering into this mixing course. In this entirety of this mixing course, we're going to be teaching you my mixing strategy that I use and have developed from 10 plus years ago, but still use to this day. A lot of people struggle with getting good mixes simply because they do not have a proper mixing strategy. And although you can go online and download vocal chains and templates and mixing Pro Tools templates, different templates, if you will, none of this ever gets you consistent results because every single song, every single vocalist, every single voice, every single beat, every single project is completely different. Sonically, it requires something new. And the way to get good mixes consistently when receiving or recording or producing new music, new songs every single time is knowing the strategy of mixing. And I'm going to teach you my Sonic Gold mix strategy. We're going to be using this song called Need from Shyla Gray, amazing artist. This is actually a song I previously mixed and is available on Spotify, Apple Music, everywhere. I chose this song because her vocals are incredible. Inside of the production itself, we have a lot of live recorded instruments, which is great. So we have bass, organ, guitars, strings, um, drums, live drums. I would call this an R&B soul track. So even if this isn't the specific genre that you work in, it's not necessarily, this mixing course is not about how to mix a specific genre. So don't get thrown off at all by the genre of music that this song is. I'm just using this song as an example to teach the mixing strategy. So this strategy works on any genre of music that you're using, but this specific song is a great example to teach this strategy simply because we have so many elements that more produced out songs and sessions will provide, such as having all these live drums, live bass, live guitar, strings, vocals, background vocals. It has everything that a professional song would have. For this first lesson, I'm going to show you guys how I organize my session for success. So, mixing is all about having control. And to have control, you need to have organization in your session. Very, very important. So, color coding, grouping, setting up buses and aux sends for different effects, busing groups of tracks together. I'm going to show you how I would set up this session, and you guys can use these same principles when you're working on whatever song that you're working on. So lesson one is organizing the session for success. So here we have all of our tracks here. This is Pro Tools, which is the DAW that I use, and this is the industry standard and what most professionals use for mixing and mastering. So already, I kind of have a lot of these tracks color coded. I color code this one as well. And the way I kind of go about it is, as long as the colors are different from one another when they're stood side by side, then more or less I'm good. Like for example, if I have this group of vocals here, which are all the same part, and I have this group of vocals here, which are all the same singer or the same, more or less the same part. I want these two things to be easy to distinguish. So I got a blue and a yellow. But for example, if I have a blue and then I have another shade of blue, it's not so easily to distinguish those differences. So for simplicity, I just give this a yellow, and that makes this group of vocals stand out a lot more from the other group of vocals here. So we just go along and make sure that there's nothing that feels too similar to the other thing. Let's give these color here. There are some color choices that, I like to stick with, and this is just preferential. Um, like drums, I usually always like to use red, which I'm using here. So I'll just keep that red color. But yeah, this is how the session looks when I just imported the tracks. Notice that there aren't any buses, so we don't have any aux sends. Nothing is grouped yet. So that's good. Another thing I like to do here in the edit window is make sure that I have the comments section here enabled, because sometimes you get tracks here that are just named all type of stuff that you are unfamiliar with. And right here, as you can see in the comments, I've already done this from my previous session when I actually mixed this song. But I just put a very simple note in here of what this track is. Instead of reading, like ND 2024 RP, whatever, I know that this track right here is a ride symbol. And I just named it Ride 2. Something simple like that. So organization is crucial. Another thing I will do is actually in the edit window, I'm going to get rid of inserts F through J. And I'm going to only have A through E, and then I'm going to get rid of inserts or sends F through J. And the reason I do this is I want to challenge myself to use less plugins. My strategy and my mixing is all about using less plugins and being very specific with the choices and the plugins that we do use. I think that's important to mixing, as a lot of people tend to overuse plugins. All right, so notice none of these tracks have any inputs. So we are completely starting from scratch. No inputs, everything has the same output. So now, what we can do, we have the tracks color coded. Number one, we have the tracks color coded, and we have them situated in our mix next to one another where it makes sense. So the next thing I'll do is I'll start to create some basic groups. So right here we have a bass track. There's only one bass track, so I don't need to create a group because there's only one. So then I'll go to the next group, which is the blue tracks. I'm working on a PC specifically, but in Pro Tools you would do Control G. I believe it would be Command G for Mac, and you can create a group. And for this group, I want to call this music, because these are just different instrumental music elements, and that's what do I call those in that situation. Next, I'm gonna go strings. This is our strings group right here. Next, we have brass. Some brass elements. And I'll highlight the next group. All the red is our drums. All right, then I'll go to our next elements. So vocals can get a little tricky, and the way that I group vocals and distinguish vocals is pretty much based on leads, ad-libs, and then background vocals. Ad-libs can also be like in and outs, things like that, things that support the lead. But let's first focus on the leads. As you can see here, we got to get very specific on what is a lead and what isn't a lead. This is a lead, and this is a lead. Dubs, verse, dubs. So all of these, I would constitute these as kind of like ad-lib, background-ish vocals. And I'm actually going to, now that I've realized that, I'm actually going to just choose another color. Set those kind of apart from our leads, which are right here. I usually like to give those a darker purple. And since those are our lead vocals, I'm actually going to expand these tracks and just make them a little bit bigger. I know that these tracks are very important to the song. So yeah, let's group our leads here. We'll just call it leads. So then this would be our first grouping of basically background vocals. So I'll just call this BV1. And then we got more background vocals. So we can go background vocal 2, BV2. More vocals here, BV3. We got another one, BV4. BV5. We got a lot of background vocals in this song. We got BV6. All right, cool. So now that step is done. So that was step 2. First step was color coding. Second step was creating groups for all of our tracks. So we got everything grouped. And now we're going to start to create some buses or some aux tracks. And for those who are unfamiliar, an auxiliary track these are audio tracks. Just to give you an example, these are audio tracks because you can actually see the waveform. You can see the audio on the tracks themselves. I can actually increase this just so you can see it more clearly. So an auxiliary track is basically what it's titled. It's a track that you can route multiple audio tracks to so that they can have similar or the same processing. So the first kind of track that I like to add once I have all my audio tracks in here color coded and grouped is a master fader. This is always very important. You always have to have one of these. So I'll do a master fader. Make that a little bit bigger. Next, we'll do some stereo aux. And at this stage, whenever you're mixing and you're just setting up your mix, I would always do stereo aux because generally you're going to be sending multiple audio tracks to one aux. They could be mono audio tracks. They could be stereo. So since there's always the capability of these tracks being stereo at the end of the day, I would always do stereo auxes to start. So let's just call it a dozen for now. So we got a dozen auxes. All right, next thing I always like to do is solo safe all of these auxes. So I'm gonna hold Control and just click the S on each of these. In Pro Tools, it's either Command S or Control S. Same thing, but you can hold Control, you can click S, and you notice how the solo function on all of these tracks is grayed out. That means when we route audio to these tracks, that when we play the audio, we'll be able to hear it. And let me give you an example of this actually. So for the first one, let's just do drums on this one. Now I'm not gonna solo save that one. I'm gonna bring that S back to how it was. So now let's go to our drum tracks here. Highlight all these. And then right here is I/O, input, output. So on the output, we can send all of these red tracks to our drum bus. So on PC, I hold Shift and Alt, and I click the output here, and I go to track. And then while holding this, I can click D, and that just sent it to our drums. As you can see here on the output, drums. And just to make sure, yep, it went in. So now that we've sent all of the tracks here, our drum tracks, to the drum bus, let's just solo one of these and see if we can hear it. So notice that we're getting volume coming in, right? Which is great, but we can't hear it. And the reason is because we don't have this solo saved. That's what solo safe means. So if we solo safe, we're gonna click or hold Control and click S on here. Now we can hear what's going on. Now we can flip to a different track. This is our kick track. Right? Now we can hear it. But if this solo safe was off, how it is by default, and we press play, we don't hear anything. So that's why this is important to solo safe your oxes. All right, cool. So essentially for each one of these groups, we want to create an aux. So we'll just go down the line. So our first group was music. So let's do music. Our second group was strings. Third group was brass. This part, can be tedious, but it's definitely worthwhile in the end in this mixing strategy, and you'll see why. Next group was leads. And then we got BV1 all the way through 6. So BV1, BV2, BV3, BV4, BV5, BV6. All we got to do is Control Shift N or Command Shift N in Mac. We're going to do stereo because we want all of our effects to always be in stereo unless we're specifically looking for a mono effect. For now, we'll just create 10 new aux tracks, and let's just color code these so that they're easy to visualize. We'll solo safe everything. That's what it's called. You can see the S's is grayed out. So we need to create one more aux here, and let's call this one effects bus. And we'll solo safe the effects bus, and then we want to route all of the effects tracks here to the effects bus. As you can see, the effects bus outputs line up with the inputs here. At the end of the day, we want all of the tracks to go to our mix bus. So all of these that are below the mix bus, I'm actually going to send those to the mix bus just like that. We actually have one more universal mix group that I have to add here. So one stereo aux. Can anyone guess what it is? It's the most important thing in the mix, usually vocals. We want to make sure the output of the vocals is going to the mix bus as well, which it is there. But you see all of these leads, background vocals, all of these vocals actually want to hit our vocal bus first. And we got that set up now. And the reason is, put here, vocal bus. The reason for that is it's great to be able to add, one or two or three, however many plugins on the vocal bus itself, which will affect the sound of all of the vocals in the mix. So anything I add here is going to affect the sound of the entire vocals in the mix. All of these are vocal auxes that are going into our vocal bus. And all of these are other aux groups that are going into the mix bus. And then the master bus, usually in Pro Tools, it has this like red burgundy color. So I kind of like to keep that going whenever I set that up. This is our master. Our master output, at the end of the day, a lot of people get the mix bus and the master confused. Mix bus is something that you create intentionally. Master bus is always going to be a track that you're going to have in the mix no matter what. This is just essentially, you don't even have a solo function or a mute function. This is just telling you the audio, like this is just the output of your entire audio. So if you want to think about it, whatever's coming through our mix bus, which everything we just routed through our mix bus is at the end of the day going out of our master bus. So you can add plugins here, but I generally only add maybe a sound meter, like a WLM meter. I'll probably just only add this just so I can understand what loud, how loud my mix is. But for like regular mixing. Anything I add here is going to affect the entire mix. So this is where I may add, an EQ, saturation, a limiter, of course, things like that. And you can see here that the output of the mix bus is out 1 and 2. That's the same as the master. So that tells you that anything that comes through this, which is everything, is also going to come out of this. To go over this entire process, all of these tracks here are audio tracks because you can see the actual audio on them. We have them color coded so that we can understand what our different sections are. Blue in this case is music tracks, and we got strings, and we got brass, and then we got drums, et cetera, et cetera. The next thing that we did was we grouped everything. So we have all of our groups here: music, strings, brass, drums, leads, etc. After that, we created auxiliary tracks. So you can do that simply by going to track, and you can do new track. I just use the quick command Control-Shift-N. So Control-Shift-N. This allows you to create what type of track you want to create. And this is for our aux channel. So we do stereo, aux, and you'll just create one. And there it goes. Boom, it just created it. So we have all these aux channels here. So once you create a bunch of aux channels, just create 20 or 30, just something to start out, because you're going to route all of these aux channels in your mix once you created them. Then you go into the groups and you send the outputs of the group audio tracks to the auxes. So for example, the blue, we haven't even done that yet, but the blue is the music, right? Highlight all the music tracks. Go to output, go to track. And we want to send that to the music bus. So we'll click M for music. We don't want mix bus. See how it went to mix bus? We want music. That's the music aux. So boom, there we go. Let's go down here. These are our strings. So we send it to our strings. There we go. Highlight the brass. Let's go to the outputs. While they're highlighted, brass. Boom. We got drums, red. These are our lead vocals. So we'll go here to leads. Boom. Output as leads. Good to go. Here goes BV1. So notice we got a lot of BVs. So BV1, there we go. Boom. Highlight the next group. And if you didn't know to highlight a group of tracks, you can click the first one, hold shift, click the last one. Now I just highlighted all of them. And then I'll hold alt at the same time as I'm clicking the output. And then I'll click track. And then I can go down to BV2. And that allows me to route it all to BV2. Go to the next one, BV3. We just keep going through this entire process. BV4. BV5. And here's our last group of audio tracks, BV6. Right. So not all the audio tracks are routed to their aux channels. Here's our aux channels: leads, BV1, all the way through 6, drums, bass, strings, music. Now, after all the audio tracks are routed to aux channels, which we have here, or aux tracks, same things. I just interchange the words. Then we're going to create what I call global aux tracks, which is our mix bus, vocals, effects. And then we start to route our previous mix channels, which is our music, strings, bass, drums, leads, all of these type of things. So music, strings, bass, drums, all of these things could just go straight into our mix bus because they aren't vocals. But our leads, BV1, BV2, all the way to BV6, all of these are various vocals, so we'll route those to our vocals. And then we have here plate reverb, hall reverb, delay 1, delay 2, etc. Anything that you want to set up in the future, we route all of those to the effects. Now, this is a key. After we're done routing to our effects, vocals, etc., remember everything needs to route through the mix bus. So you can see here on the output, effects, we're going to mix bus. Vocals, we're going to mix bus. Mix bus, we don't select the output, it just automatically goes to our master bus or our master output. So that is essentially how you set up a mix for success. There's really nothing else I need to do here besides getting into the next step, which is starting to gain stage and do the static mix. So stick around for lesson number 2 coming up. See y'all soon. Peace.